These have been anxiety-inducing days, from the agony and anger an algorithm brought to symbolic acts of anarchy and a burning desire for politicians to listen. Gavin Williamson decided to mark yesterday's U-turn with this mugshot photo shoot. And if you're wondering, like many did, why on earth the Education Secretary's posing with a whip, a reference to his chief whip days, we hope. Today, he was repeatedly asked again if he'd resign, instead speaking to another broadcaster, this.
My apologies to those students that have been affected and those students that have been impacted by not getting the right grade. What is was absolutely clear right from the start when we decided to go down the route of standardised grades is ensuring that there was fairness and equality within the system.
But make no mistake, the U-turn doesn't solve the A-levels problem. It merely transfers it to the doorstep of institutions like this. Here at Imperial College. Right now, hundreds of thousands of students across the UK are desperately trying to secure their original offers. Only Vice-Chancellors are warning they may not have space for everyone.
Take Abdullah. He got a place to study computing here at Imperial, but after being downgraded, lost his first choice.
University is an investment, so I don't have much money to invest. But I invested my time, so what's going to happen is all of that time which I've invested is gone. I could have put that effort elsewhere. So, I mean, I think Gavin Williamson shouldn't be in his office anymore if I'm not in my dorm.
Despite the government lifting caps on student numbers in England, universities fear social distancing also means there simply isn't the space or the staff to accommodate everyone.
There's a possibility that a number of students will not get their place at their dream university this year. And they may need to defer until next year, or they may need to consider their second choice. And I'm really sorry about that, because obviously we want students to get their first choice. And as I said, we'll do everything we possibly can, but we have to ensure that our students are safe.
While Mr Williamson claims the government only realised the algorithm was flawed at the weekend. But back in July, the Education Select Committee did raise concerns that the system was more likely to be unfair for low-income students.
I'm baffled by the idea that Gavin Williamson, the Secretary of State for Education, didn't see the algorithm and the way that it impacted students across the country until the weekend. And this was a couple of days after students have been given their results.
A small number of BTEC students graded by that same fated algorithm could also now be reviewed.
He was just another statistic. We all were.
Not even the Scottish U-turn could give English politicians prophetic powers. English literature student Jess, however, did predict it. Last year, she won the Youth Orwell Prize for a piece of dystopian fiction about an unfair algorithm. And here we are.
And you fell into your own story, in a way.
Yeah, so I missed my university place because I was downgraded in my English. It moved from an A to a B. I set my dystopian in the 2040s, so it came a bit quicker than that.
While Jess may have predicted the future in fiction, in reality, many ask why politicians did not foresee this fiasco earlier down the track before walking into their own crisis.
Well, for a second day running, we bid for an interview with the Department for Education. They declined and nobody was available. But joining me now is Steve Denton, Chief Operating Officer and Registrar at Nottingham Trent University, and Megan Gaunt, who's been given a place here. Steve Denton, speaking to you first, how are you picking your way through this chaos?
Well, firstly, it's great that students like Megan have now got the results they richly deserve after many, many years of hard work. And, you know, we've had to act pretty quickly over the last 24 hours to shift things. We've had to restore a helpline for students, and we've taken literally thousands of calls today. So we've had to act agilely.
But have you got the capacity to honour the places you offered last week and offer a whole load of new offers to people who hadn't made the grades but now have?
Yeah, we had a great confirmation and clearing last week, and we thought we'd hit our targets over the weekend. What we're anticipating now is some insurance students may well decide to go to their first choice university, but set against that then, we've got some students who we might have rejected earlier in the cycle who will now meet their conditions of entry. So that should offset each other.
Right, so you're not going to end up with a net loss of students posing a financial headache?
No, we'd already planned in that we might make some financial losses this year, primarily from international students, but not on home undergraduate students.
Right, so you are facing a financial headache this year, a loss this year.
Yeah.
Are you going to be asking the government for a bailout?
No, we're not. We've decided this is something that we should manage. We're a financially responsible university. We think we can take the short-term hit with some cost controls, deferring some capital programmes, because we want to protect the longer-term future of the university.
So if you're honouring the offers you've already made and you're making all these new offers, have you got the room to, have all these students here?
Yeah, so where we think we'll end up with the undergraduate students from the UK is broadly where we were targeting. And we'd already put in place a programme to repurpose parts of the estate to create more teaching and study spaces. We've said to more staff that they'll continue working at home for the majority of term one. That space is being converted into teaching spaces. We've got space across the road here that we're leasing, so we are creating additional capacity.
Because you're not only having more students this year, which you budgeted for, but also you need more space because of social distancing.
That's right, and I can reassure people that when they come here, it'll be a great experience, but it'll be a very, very safe experience.
And just briefly, we filmed in your call centre earlier today. A lot of those staff were supposed to be on holiday this week, weren't they? I mean, how hard are people working here to sort of clear up this mess that was not a mess of your own making? How frustrating is that?
My colleagues have worked incredibly hard since lockdown, really, since March. We taught students then in the latter part of the last academic year, and then we've been working really, really hard to make sure that our students, like Megan, will have a great experience. So I couldn't be more proud of them.
But you're frustrated at the government?
As you said, we've got to bring order out of chaos, and it's one thing that this university does pretty well.
Very diplomatic. Steve Denton, thanks very much. Let's turn now to Megan Gaunt. You've got a place here.
Yes.
I think the algorithm predicted you brought out a DDE.
Yeah.
It's now improved to DDD
Yes.
based on teacher assessments. So those improved grades could have won you a place on a different course at a different university, correct?
Yes, they
Did you
could
think
have.
about changing tack?
No, I feel like Trent believed in me. That's why they honoured me a place here to study. And so I didn't want to then go back and be like, oh, thanks for the offer, but no thanks. So I thought, you know what, I want to go to a university that believes in me. And Trent did that.
So their early faith in you has paid off for them?
Yes, because like I say, because of the difficult circumstances, they didn't have to believe in me because, like I said, they knew that they could have had people turning around after the revised grades, and they could have had people potentially with better grades than me coming to them. But like I said, that early belief that, you know what, we'll take her on and we'll give her a chance, I think that just, did it for me.
I mean, frustratingly for you, you've had a very difficult sixth form. Your mum died in your first year. Your teachers actually predicted you BBC.
Yeah.
So you sort of underperformed because of your personal circumstances.
Yeah.
So you would have liked to have sat the exams, right?
Yeah, I feel like people like me, my kind of circumstances, we did take a massive hit and a big loss because of Corona. I felt like I was turning my studies around towards the end, so I'd say probably 6 weeks prior to when Corona hit, my studies were really on track. I was doing so much better. All my teachers were like, you know what, you're going to get your predicteds. They all had a lot of faith in me. And then to turn around and get DDD at the end, it was like, okay, well, I know why, because I had to be based off what I'd already done. But I feel like people like me were at disadvantage because we didn't get a chance to show our full capabilities.
Did you ever think about resitting the exams?
I think it did cross my mind, but being out of education for that long, it made it difficult because how can you tell someone after 6 months of being out of education, you now need to go back into it? It was really difficult. I got out of the headspace and I felt like I had moved on from college and I was ready for the next chapter of my life.
Just briefly, you are coming here now.
Yes.
Are you excited to be doing so when it's going to be socially distanced, coronavirus is still looming over you?
I feel like I know the university will make it as good as an experience as it can be. I understand it will be different from previous years, but it didn't put me off. I know a lot of people deferred because of Corona and because of that reason, but to me it was never an option to defer. I feel like,
Well, best of luck for the future.
Thank
Megan
you.
Gaunt, thanks very much for talking to us, and Steve Denton too. So the next challenge facing the Education Secretary will be getting pupils in England back to school in September. As with exam results, Scotland has been dealing with this situation first. A plan to have children return part-time has been replaced by one which sees schools reopening at full capacity, without some of the more stringent measures in place elsewhere in the world. Our Scotland correspondent Kieran Jenkins reports.
These are some of the largest gatherings of people to take place in the UK since lockdown. As pupils pour back in Scotland, only some things have changed. No masks required on school buses. They're considered an extension of the campus.
One thing to remember, for the next couple of days is just getting yourself used to coming in, sanitising your hands, washing your hands as you know everywhere you go.
Absorbing all this are the new intake at Notre Dame High School in Greenock.
Slightly different, isn't it, this big school?
We're with them as their school reopens.
It's obviously different now because of the coronavirus and you have to be more careful.
Okay, so this is going to be one of the procedures. Anytime you come into the classroom, you will be washing your hands straight away. We're then going to spray down at the end of the lesson with the spray here. We don't want you to feel scared here. We just want to minimise the possibility of this virus transmitting if it was here.
So we've set up chairs and tables in here so that they can still be safely supervised.
There are more than 1,000 staff and pupils at this school. Head teacher Kate shows us how they're trying to keep some of them apart by having different break areas for different age groups.
What would happen if one of the pupils in this room tested positive?
Then that will be taken over by public health. They would be able to identify what pupils that they have been in contact with, and they would be asked to self-isolate.
You'd know that they'd been in this room and not necessarily who they'd been sat next to.
That's the challenge in a secondary school.
A major study from South Korea found transmission appears to be lower among young children, but older children spread the virus much like adults. So what about pupils getting close? In Scotland, while trying to avoid too many interactions, it has been decided that pupils can mix without physical distancing.
We've all seen during lockdown some schools elsewhere in the world, the desks were spaced way apart. That's not happening here, is it?
We were prepared for that. We had that all set up just prior to the summer holiday. However, the advice changed and it was felt that it was safe to have the pupils return.
Adults in schools are being asked to keep their distance from each other and the pupils.
In this strange COVID age, what would previously have been totally unremarkable, a classroom full of children, a teacher stood in front of them, suddenly seems anything but. Now, schools here are opening without some of the stricter measures in place in other countries, and that's why eyes around the world are on Scotland.
Countries have gone further in terms of reducing class sizes. They have instituted universal face masks.
And there have been countries that have maybe thought again after opening schools and reversed course?
Yeah, a number of countries have had to respond to surges in cases, either in the community or in schools themselves. Israel is probably the most obvious example. I think it probably is premature to say that there's a right and a wrong way. I think that the right answer is going to depend a lot on the local context, both in terms of virus transmission, but also the ways that schools are set up.
Scotland's big hope is to try and keep cases low generally so the virus stays out of schools. Where pupils have already tested positive, there's been one here at St Ambrose High School in North Lanarkshire. Nicola Sturgeon believes so far they were infected off the school premises.
We are trying to prepare for and expect all possible eventualities.
The First Minister said today the guidance is kept under review and she couldn't rule out transmission within schools. Almost all pupils are now back. At St Patrick's Primary, they've scrapped the school canteen.
The basic principle is that the children can be together, but they have to remain within their class bubble.
How are the teachers feeling? Because this is all new for you as well.
It is, and there is a level of anxiety within the staff, mostly because they're worried about getting it right for the children and not putting themselves or the children in any more danger, but also want it to feel normal and feel like school.
Can we all count to 20 for Scott, do we think?
Around the world, few countries have managed to open schools at full capacity. The rest of the UK hopes to follow, but in Scotland just now, an enormous experiment is underway.